I started off by building the frame for the base out of 2x4 screwed together by 2.5-inch construction screws. Using my stud finder and my puppy, I marked the location of all the studs in the closet. And here's the mock-up that my wife gave me to try to replicate here. Not too bad. 3 hanging rods, some shelves, some more shelves, and 4 drawers. I've never made drawers before or a built-in closet, so this would all be interesting. I then used wooden shims to level out the base. Then I used 3-inch screws to attach the base onto the studs on the back wall and the 2 side walls. Once the base was in place, I cut a piece of 3/4 inch sanded plywood to the dimensions of the base and placed it on top, securing it to the base with 1.5 inch brad nails and a couple of screws. This gave the bottom of the built-ins an overall height of about 4 1/4 inches. This measurement will be needed for the baseboards that I intend to put in the front of the base towards the end of this build. I opted to go with pocket holes to fasten all the pieces of plywood together. For the vertical pieces on the sides, I used 3 pocket holes each, top and bottom, to secure them to the base, as well as a screw higher up towards the middle to secure it to the studs in the wall. The rest of the plywood pieces were purposely cut about 3/4 of an inch less deep because I knew I wanted to add 1x2 trim all around the cabinets. So I used this measurement to account for that, giving it a flush look in the end. For any areas where there were large gaps between the cabinets and the walls, I added some polyfoam tape to fill in those gaps. This was really useful when it came time to add caulking to all the seams, as it made it so I didn't have to add as much caulking. And after putting up both of the side pieces, I added a single piece of plywood across the top. The next piece I decided to put up was the vertical piece in the middle. I knew that this piece would be used for the right side of the cabinet where my drawers would go, so I made sure this piece was as square as possible, as square as I could get it before screwing it down. I got a helping hand to install another vertical piece just to the right of the last one, again trying to keep it as square as I could. Once those two pieces were up, I began installing the first of what would be many shelves that would go into this area. I used clamps to hold down the sides and screwed the shelves in with more pocket hole screws. From here, I moved left and installed another vertical piece that would represent the left side of the drawer cabinet, and after that, a horizontal piece for the top of the drawer cabinet. To install the rest of the shelving in this middle area here, what I did was I cut two pieces of plywood to use as spacers so they're equal lengths, and I used them as I worked my way up to ensure that the spacing between each shelf was exactly the same. I used some 1x6 common boards to help support the areas where a hanging rod would go. This seemed like a good idea for the added weight in those areas. These boards were mounted to the studs in the back wall. I also put one of these in the cabinet where the drawers were gonna go. The next thing I decided to take on was installing all of the 1x2 trim. This trim is selected pine. They're strong and usually very straight, just a little bit pricey. I glued and nailed all of the trim onto all of the edges of the plywood. For the drawers, I built them out of 3/4 inch plywood, just like the rest of the cabinetry here, and 1/4 inch plywood for the bottoms. I used my table saw to cut all the pieces to size, and also used it to cut the dados for the bottoms. I didn't use any pocket holes here, I just kept it really simple, as I'm new to building drawers and built-in cabinets. I didn't want to overdo it or overthink it. I didn't attach a separate drawer front either. For the drawer slides, I used some soft close ones that I found on Amazon. For the price that I paid for them, they work okay, nothing too great. I'll probably try to find some better quality ones for next time though. After installing all 4 drawers, I filled all the pocket holes and nail holes with wood filler, and I also caulked all the seams. Then after sanding everything down, it was time to start painting. I bought a Wagner Flexio 3500 spray gun just to try it out. I was still getting used to how it works and how you're supposed to thin out the paint and adjust the different settings on the gun, so I sort of struggled to get a decent spray and decent coverage out of it. So it took me a while, it took me a few coats and a lot of paint. And here's how the closet turned out after installing the hanging rods and the baseboards. Although the cost of this closet was more than what I had anticipated because the price of wood is just expensive these days, I do think I would probably go this route again, as it's still cheaper than purchasing something like an IKEA PAX unit from IKEA. Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you in the next video.